The chair of the inquiry into the Southport attack says that it could and should have been prevented.
And we're about to discover exactly how Axel Rudakubana could have been prevented from butchering 3 little girls in a dance studio in July 2024. He hated white people, had parents who were scared of him, tried to behead one of his 3 victims, and even now, in prison, continues to be violent and remorseless. But what were the missed opportunities to stop triple murderer Axel Rudakubana, who I'm mainly going to be calling Axel, who was 17 when, in July 2024, he committed his evil acts, becoming what he's become?
It should be remembered that for over 2 years before the attack on the 29th of July, AR had only ever left home by himself when he was intending to kill or seriously harm others.
Coming from a small village in Lancashire called Banks, at first Axel was a well-liked pupil at school whose talent for acting got him the lead role in a Children in Need trailer where he portrayed Doctor Who. However, at the age of 13, Axel changed. Having been happy at school before then, he was now being systematically bullied for reasons of racial hate. In October 2019, when he was, as I say, 13, he called Childline and told them that he had started carrying a knife to school for protection and that he was seriously thinking about killing. When the school discovered what Axel had told Childline, they kicked him out. In December of the same year, he returned to the school unannounced, armed with a hockey stick, and proceeded to attack a student who used to bully him, breaking his arm. Hidden in the backpack that he was wearing, meanwhile, was a kitchen knife, evidencing the boy's growing fixation on violence. In any event, teachers thankfully managed to overpower the boy and then call the police. The boy was arrested and later charged with assault, ABH, actual bodily harm, and possession of an offensive weapon. This incident was Axel's first formal encounter with the criminal justice system. He was referred to PREVENT, the UK's anti-extremism programme, after authorities noted concerning behaviours from the boy, including an apparent fascination with mass shootings. And yet, despite these warning signs, PREVENT officials determined that Axel didn't exhibit any clear signs of radicalisation or ideological motivation. Instead, they viewed his actions as the result of personal struggles, not extremist beliefs. Axel was placed under a youth justice referral order, a programme designed to rehabilitate young offenders. He completed the order in 2021, but hadn't changed. In April 2021, at his new school, when a teacher both noticed and reported that Axel had been researching the 2019 London Bridge terror attack during a lesson, officials again said that there was no concrete evidence that the youth was being radicalised in any way. In November 2021, police were called to Axel's home after the boy, who by this point was 15, kicked his father and damaged his car because he was angry with him. The matter ended with Axel getting another vulnerable child referral, and it shows us, I'd say, that the youth's parents were weak.
To use the words of his own father, AR had turned into a monster.
4 months later, March 2022 then, Axel went missing from home. He was found soon after on a bus whose driver called the police when Axel refused to pay his fare. When officers arrived, Axel calmly announced that he was carrying a knife. The police confiscated the weapon before returning the boy to his parents, and that was the end of that. In January 2022, Axel purchased castor beans. He bought them online. Castor beans contain ricin, one of the most lethal biological toxins known to man, which, with the pestle and mortar that the boy also bought, can be converted into a weapon of mass destruction. Police also found, when, the day after the youth committed his murderous atrocities in Southport, when they raided the youth's home, a terror training manual from an Islamic terror group, along with numerous images of genocide and mass violence. A week before perpetrating his Southport attack, Axel armed himself with a large kitchen knife and booked a taxi to his old school. In the nick of time though, his father stopped him going. I think it's safe to assume that Axel was going there to how should I put it, stab people up and kill them if he could.
I have no doubt that if appropriate procedures had been in place, and if sensible steps had been taken by the agencies and AR's parents, this dreadful event would not have happened.
We've got no information to suggest there's anything other than this person involved. He's in custody. There's a knife up there. He's been disarmed.
Any more kids in there?
Instead of being calm and still as he is now, moments before now, 17-year-old Axel Rudakubana was behaving very differently.
Take his arm over there, mate. Yeah.
The brazen and unprovoked knife attack that he's just carried out in a dance club in Southport, northwest England, having left 10 people, including 8 little girls, badly injured, while 3 little girls have lost their lives. The perpetrator didn't pay the taxi that he took on the morning of the 29th of July 2024 from his home to the dance club, having armed himself before leaving home with a kitchen knife. When he invaded the dance studio where a Taylor Swift themed activity was taking place, the little girls were sitting at tables making friendship bracelets. The perpetrator immediately started stabbing people and tried to behead 7-year-old Elsie Stancombe. Alongside Elsie, Alice Aguiar, age 9, and Bebe King, age 6, ended up murdered. The perpetrator inflicted serious injuries on 8 other girls as well as on 2 adults, and for legal reasons only the injuries suffered by the 2 adults were allowed to be presented to us in videos of the sentencing hearing. Even then, I can only find you about half the clip relating to the injuries suffered by an adult organiser called Leanne Lucas, who was in charge of all of the girls.
She tried to save as many children as she could. Leaning over them, Rudakubana attacked her also. She did all she could before escaping, but suffered 5 stab wounds to her head, neck, back, shoulder blade and arm. She required a blood transfusion. She also suffered fractures to a spinal vertebrae, a rib, a shoulder blade, and all caused by severe force. And Jonathan Hayes was an adult working in a different part of the upstairs to the building. After he heard the disturbance, he went out to see what had happened and was attacked with a knife. Rudakubana stabbed him in the leg, causing a deep wound as he tried to kill him. He was only saved when another witness appeared.
As for the injuries inflicted on the 8 other girls that Rudakubana attacked, who all, as I say, thankfully survived, Child 1, or C1, was aged 7. She almost managed to escape, but Rudakubana was seen to pull her back into the building and attack her. He stabbed her 32 times, including 23 to her back and arms, causing her life-threatening injuries. Fortunately, she survived, having collapsed outside. And frankly, that basically tells you the sorts of things that the perpetrator did to the other 7 girls as well. We'll move on. Once the perpetrator was in police custody, the police having arrived only minutes after the youth's deadly rampage began, he declared repeatedly that he was glad that the children were dead. Axel Rudakubana's savage attack on the dance club triggered 4 days of rioting across the UK, and people were jailed for Facebook posts and tweets that allegedly broke the laws relating to free speech. After changing his plea to his charges of murder and attempted murder from not guilty to guilty on the first day of his trial, the 20th of January 2025, in his sentencing hearing that came 3 days later, the perpetrator no less behaved with childishness and contempt for his victims. Due to constantly shouting out and claiming to be sick, to be exact, he was removed from the dock several times until the judge, Mr. Justice Goose from Liverpool Crown Court, deemed it necessary for him to be kicked out of the courtroom for good.
During this sentence hearing, Axel Rudakubana was determined to disrupt the proceedings so that he would not have to face the victims of his crimes and justice. I was required to have him removed from court, not because that is what he wanted, but he was preventing the hearing from being held in the normal way. Accordingly, I passed sentence in his voluntary absence, whilst his counsel, both leading and junior, and solicitor are present in court.
In reference to the sentence that Mr Justice Goose subsequently imposed on the perpetrator, the judge made no bones about either his desire to lock the youth up forever or his belief that being locked up forever, even though that isn't the sentence imposed, is exactly what lies in store for the murderer.
He's a UK citizen, now aged 18, but was still 17 when he committed these offences. He was only 9 days short of his 18th birthday, which has a particular significance. Had he been 18, I make it clear that I would have been compelled to impose on him life imprisonment without a minimum term, otherwise known as a whole life term, meaning that he would never be released. However, the law does not permit such a sentence for those offenders who are under 18 when they offend. The minimum term I will fix will be a very substantial one, and the very least he will be detained, which will mean that he will serve almost the whole of his life in custody. I consider at this time that it is likely he will never be released and that he will be in custody for all his life. I'm now going to sentence Axel Rudakubana, having explained my reasons. On counts 1 to 3 murder, I sentence him to custody for life with a minimum term which he must serve in custody of 52 years, less the time he's served already. He's been in custody for 175 days on remand, which will be credited. Therefore, the minimum term is 51 years and 190 days.
On the 8th of May 2025 at HMP Belmarsh, his home, the perpetrator threw boiling water over a prison guard. The killer hasn't changed, and it's looking at this point like his 52-year minimum term will turn into a whole life order, and hey, I don't think there'll be many people who'll be mourning that. What's interesting though is that when Rudakubana committed that attack on a prison officer, he just had his monitoring downgraded from the level of being supervised 24 hours a day in the prison's healthcare unit to one where he was supervised far less closely. After the attack, he was put on a regime where he was kept in his cell for 23 hours a day and had both his kettle and his TV taken away. Staff now fear that in response to the Southport Inquiry, the youth will be triggered to commit new acts of violence against them. As for the victim of Rudakubana's May 2025 attack, having thankfully only suffered minor injuries, the officer was not only discharged from hospital the very same day, but was also expected to return to work the following week. I actually can't confirm that the person actually did so though. If you're still here at this point of the video, lovely viewer, do subscribe, give the video a like, drop a comment when you're ready, and donate. Hit the thanks button below, I'll appreciate you. According to the staff at Belmarsh, despite his many sessions with psychologists and therapists, Rudakubana hasn't changed in the slightest. Staff are scared of him, as I've more or less already said, and they also don't like being called away from their other duties just to go and take him for walkies, the youth needing, you see, the guard of 4 prison officers in full riot gear whenever he's out of his cell. While at least one officer has a body-worn camera on whenever officers interact with him, staff are fearful that the young man could, as I say, make a weapon or try another attack like the one from May 2025, all because of the Southport Inquiry. Regarding the attack that I keep mentioning from May 2025, where he chucked boiling water over a screw, the young man is, even today, still not allowed a kettle in his cell. The triple murderer, though, is allowed to mix with other inmates for exercise, this being the reason for his daily hour out of his cell, as well as getting visits from an imam and having a TV in his cell again. Furthermore, he's allowed to spend the money that he regularly gets from his family on tuck, Maltesers and Pringles being, by all accounts, his go-to snacks. The killer is at least banned, though, from buying butter or baby oil, which could be boiled and used to attack prison staff. How he would actually boil the stuff, I couldn't tell you because, as I've said, he no longer has a kettle. As I record this, Rudakubana is seeing security measures against him tightened, all because staff are scared of what he might do because of the Southport Inquiry. What I can't tell you though is exactly how security is being tightened around him. He's already stuck in a cell in a special section of Belmarsh prison all on his own 23 hours a day, so I honestly don't know what else they're doing. While prison officers are scared of Rudakubana, they keep him in a segregation wing because they can't risk letting him into the general population.
If he was let loose on a main location wing, he wouldn't last longer than 5 minutes. He would be attacked immediately from the lads on main location because, like I've said, some of these lads on main location...
Then again, Ian Huntley was on a segregation wing, and now triple murderer and rapist Anthony Russell is looking at his 4th murder conviction for splitting the Sowan murderer's skull in half. There are a number of further harrowing details to the triple murder committed by Axel Rudakubana that I am about to present through extracts of the sentencing remarks as well as extracts of the Southport Inquiry. Brace yourselves.
I'm sure that Rudakubana had a settled and determined intention to carry out these offences, and that had he been able to, he would have killed each and every child, all 26 of them, as well as any adults who got in his way. It was only because some managed to escape that prevented many more from being murdered. I'm also sure that after the other children, 8 of whom he had very seriously injured, managed to escape, it left him in the upstairs room and landing, where he returned to continue his sustained and brutal violence against 2 of the youngest of those children, stabbing them multiple times. That demonstrated how determined he was to cause the maximum suffering he could. Left alone with them where they'd fallen, he continued shocking and extreme violence. Elsie Stancombe was aged only 7 when Rudakubana inflicted at least 85 sharp force injuries to her head, face, neck, torso and upper limbs. Severe force was used to cause her death. Bebe King was aged only 6 when he inflicted at least 122 sharp force injuries to her head, face, neck, torso and upper limbs. It was the opinion of Dr. Seeker, the pathologist, that Rudakubana had tried to decapitate her. He concluded that severe force was used to kill her. Alice da Silva Aguiar was aged 9 when he stabbed her, including a chop wound to her head and 4 stab wounds to her back, causing substantial internal injury. Although she managed to escape out of the building, she collapsed, and despite all medical help, she died in hospital at 1:20 in the morning the following day. When the police arrived at about 12 noon, they found him standing over the body of Bebe King and still holding the knife. It was Bebe who had suffered at least 122 separate knife wounds. He was arrested, taken into custody, and whilst Rudakubana did not say anything in his police interviews, he did make unsolicited comments which are deeply disturbing, including, quote, "I'm glad to see those kids are dead, it makes me happy," close quote, and, quote, "It's a good thing those children are dead," close quote. In his home, the police discovered clear evidence of a settled intention to carry out mass killing. On one of his computers were files proving that he had a long-standing preoccupation with violent killing and genocide. Of particular significance were copies of an Al-Qaeda training manual, which described methods of killing with a knife and where to attack the victim. Part of it referred to attacking the head and neck, just as he had done to some of the victims in this case.
From his early teens, he had become ever more fixated on extreme violence. I have no doubt at all that this disturbing preoccupation had been fed during the many years when, wholly unsupervised and lacking any parental controls, he spent the majority of his waking hours online. The strong indications are that he fueled his perversely violent fixation by viewing a wide range of deeply inappropriate and disturbing subjects that are all too available on the internet. It is no coincidence that one of the last things he did before he left his family's home to commit these cruel offences was to locate a graphic and simply appalling video on X, formerly known as Twitter, of a knife attack on Bishop Emmanuel in Australia. This was, beyond doubt, in my view, to strengthen his resolve to carry through with his cowardly and murderous plan. Over a long period of time, AR had become an aggressive, near-total recluse who bullied and threatened his family and unashamedly lied to officials. As a teenager, he had researched websites selling a wide range of knives, crossbows, bows and arrows, machetes, sledgehammers, and the items needed for making multiple Molotov cocktails. He had asked his father to buy him petrol, and he had purchased a sizable petrol can. A number of weapons or other potentially lethal items of this kind had been purchased by him online and delivered to the family's home address. Professionals who had direct contact with him expressed serious fears, sometimes in stark terms, that he would go on to harm or kill. Those fears were communicated, and yet they did not result in the coordinated and effective action that was needed. Although I have already referred to the difficulties they undoubtedly faced, AR's parents bear considerable blame for what occurred. All too frequently, they created significant obstacles to constructive engagement by AR with the various relevant agencies. They were too ready to excuse and defend the multiple examples of his wholly inappropriate actions and the lies which he told. They failed to stand up to his behaviour and to set boundaries. They neglected to investigate and prohibit AR's purchase of weapons which were arriving at the family home through the post. And they failed to report the dramatic escalation in the evident risk he posed in the period between the 22nd and the 29th of July, including perhaps most notably on the day of the attack itself.
I of course can't answer why the boy's parents didn't stop the boy going out on the day of Southport. Were they in? Did they know he'd gone out? Did they know and try to stop him but fail? A decision has since been taken, however, not to bring any criminal charges against the parents for failing to stop their son committing his atrocities. If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.